Crash Bandicoot is back with an epic 4th installment that I just haven't played yet because I don't have the money. Also because I didn't complete the Insane Trilogy just yet because A, it's really difficult, B, I don't have a lot of time. And C, I don't really reserve any nostalgia for the Crash Bandicoot series, but what I will say is I'm so happy to hear that this gaming icon is back on his feet. But I myself was always more of a Spyro guy. Just preferred him. Not, you know, it's not a slight against Crash Bandicoot or anything, I just prefer Spyro. And it's about damn time I had a positive video about Spyro on this channel, because the only video I have on that special purple little guy is the video on Spyro Enter the Dragonfly being my very first disappointment experience. And that's not a very good little light to shine on the little guy. So in this video today, I'll be talking about the original Spyro trilogy and what made it a worthy competitor for Crash Bandicoot. What's crack-a-lackin', home dogs? It's your boy Channel Pup, and I just want to preface this video with some really great news and some thank yous. So as you guys will probably already know, my previous laptop was absolutely bricked by a virus which maxed out the CPU, frying the motherboard. Now, I'm no wealthy guy, and when my buddy Kinundo heard how much money this whole debacle had cost me, he organized a fundraiser to help me to afford the costs of my new laptop. My new friend Sirius the Skeptic went on to promote this fundraiser in his live stream, and within that night, it was completed. So I would like to thank Chris Stauffer, Joshua Toms, Kate Snyderman for their donations and their generosity. You guys are wonderful people. And I would also like to really thank Alistair Haybig for their massive donation to this. Your generosity has been absolutely mind-blowing. So this video, as you requested, is on the Spyro games, and I hope you enjoy the free hoodie I sent. It is with thanks to you, and of course also thanks to Christopher, Joshua Toms, and Kate Snyderman, everyone who donated, that I'm able to just make content again, and I can't tell you how good that feels. I'm so touched, my heart is so full, I didn't know that people could be so kind. And the same also goes to everyone that has supported me throughout this whole debacle. Honestly, my heart is full right now. I think my faith in humanity right now is the highest it's ever been. So, let's just go straight in and talk about the Spyro games. One of the first 3D games I ever played was Spyro Year of the Dragon on the PlayStation 1. I wouldn't go on to play the other two in the original trilogy until quite a bit later on into my teen years when I discovered the wonders of emulation on an Android tablet. Now that is playing games as they were intended. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Spyro Year of the Dragon left quite an impact on me as a kiddo. And I'm not going to go into anything specific about that third game just yet until we've talked about the other two, but I will talk about Spyro as a character and what this character means to me. As far as video gaming mascots go, as you guys know, Sonic the Hedgehog is my favorite, but Spyro is my second favorite. Now, unlike Sonic the Hedgehog, I haven't seen the entire Spyro series through to every different iteration of this character. So when I say Spyro is my second favorite video gaming mascot, I just mean the PlayStation 1 era classic Spyro. The thing about Spyro is he was this perfect little cocktail of accessibility and just the highest level of polish. He wasn't strenuously difficult to get to grips with like his orange counterpart. Sure, there was a learning curve, but it was very straightforward, and from the get-go, you could at least pick up and play. Which is where the PlayStation 1 classic Spyro the Dragon really shows that sometimes less is more. Spyro the Dragon is strictly devoted to exploration and discovery, as the game has you venturing from realm to realm, rescuing dragons, collecting gems, and facing off against different enemies. The emphasis on exploration is also a very big part of this game's level-to-level structure, with various different hub worlds that will direct Spyro to the next level. With kind of a free-form structure, you can play this thing in different orders. And in every one of these hub worlds, there's lots of different bits and bobs to do and see. And again, it all stays very simplistic, but then there's Spyro himself, a suitably breezy character to play as and control, which just makes playing through these levels an absolute delight. There's not a huge deal of challenge. The challenge that is there is all very fair. You can complete the main story of Spyro the Dragon pretty quickly, but at the same time, if you make the most of it, there's a lot to get out of this game. What it lacks in overall challenge in its main storyline, it does make up for in scale. as there is a lot of ground to cover in this game. As for the story, I feel like Insomniac Games were well aware that Spyro the Dragon could be a lot of people's very first game, the defining beginner's game of a generation, so they kept things simple. This story is nothing special by any standards, be it the standards back then or today. It was not a story-driven game by any stretch. The story simply serving as a motivation to get the player going. Some dragons are filming a documentary, and they're talking about Gnasty Gnorc, who was banished and who is particularly ugly. Gnasty Gnorc overhears this and freezes all of the dragons in the realms, with the exception of Spyro, who's just very short and very small, so naturally Gnasty Gnorc missed. So it's up to, well, this cocky little shit here to save the day.
Where's Gnasty Gnorc? I'll torch him.
Okay, so in retrospect, it's quite clear that they didn't really properly have Spyro's personality and voice down in this one. It feels very much like Spyro has taken a few notes from Sonic in that he's supposed to be a little bit cocky and he's supposed to have a bit of a youthful kind of attitude. But in this case, it's just more like, well, you little shit, come here, I'm going to strangle you. I'm going to smack you with the back of my hand. It's safe to say that Spyro doesn't have quite the expressive design that Sonic the Hedgehog does that allows him to get away with this stuff, and another great thing about Sonic the Hedgehog is when he was truly at his cockiest, he didn't talk. Whereas this little bastard talks in the voice of Carlos Alazraqui, who many will recognize from Rocco's Modern Life. Which is kind of an interesting juxtaposition, as Rocco the Wallaby is probably one of the most likable animated characters out there. Now, it's safe to say, while Spyro does a little but does it in a very effective way in regard to narrative, I did find the appeal of Spyro the Dragon did start to wear off a little bit towards the end. That simple little motivation of Gnasty Gnorc freezing the dragons is enough for about a game half this length, but I feel like a little more could have been done to propel players forwards, but at the same time, I'm not really the target demographic of this game anymore. I know they say kids have shorter attention spans, but I don't think that's entirely true. As a kid, I would have played the shit out of this for hours on end. As an adult, I got stuff to do. I got jobs, I got chores, I got errands to run. So with that story being so thin on the ground and so elementary level, I tend to forget what I'm coming back to play Spyro 1 for. Keep in mind, this is not a criticism by any stretch. It's effective. It works for children, and I'm not in the target demographic. And the other things that don't quite work as well for me about this one, such as the very simplistic boss fights, again, it was made to cater towards children. So it is completely understandable. The level structure, it's repetition based to a certain degree. You go to a new realm, you go collect some gems, you free some of the dragons, and from time to time you'll fight against the easiest bosses you've ever fought in your entire life. Rinse, repeat, it's all pretty basic. But that whole pretty basic thing is part of what makes Spyro so effective. Spyro the Dragon is very much the antithesis to Crash Bandicoot, in the way that Crash Bandicoot is all about multi-layered challenges, with incredibly steep learning curves. Spyro is in every way the antithesis to Crash Bandicoot in all the best ways possible. Those narrow, confined paths are now wide open levels for you to explore. It's simple enough to pick up and play with a very minimal learning curve, which means it's incredibly accessible not only to newcomers of the Spyro series, but newcomers to 3D gaming, platforming, and collectathons in general, which is what made Spyro the Dragon the ideal starting point for a generation of young gamers. Now, keep in mind, where I've stated that certain things didn't work as well for me, I did mention, obviously it's aimed at children, so I would never expect for them to necessarily build upon this, but moving into Spyro 2, Ripto's Rage, they actually ended up improving on this. Insomniac as developers really do like to go the extra mile, don't they? Quick bit of trivia, Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage in the UK is referred to as Spyro Gateway to Glimmer until the reignited Trilogy cemented Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage as the official canon title of the game. The more you know. So, Spyro 2 very much brings back a lot of the key gameplay elements of the original game. Simplistic gameplay, an emphasis on exploration and collectibles, a quest for the young dragon. Now, I did note that Spyro in the previous game pretty unlikable little shit. In this one, he's just a frustrated everyman that just wanted to go on holiday but has been dragged into another adventure that he really doesn't want to embark on. Which is where you'll also notice, a little bit of attention to detail here, that Spyro's idle animation makes him look significantly more pissed off than he did in the previous one, along with other little graphical improvements here and there, as well as a better art direction this time around. Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage is a bit less simplistic. It builds on what worked about the original, while still maintaining a very simple gameplay style. For starters, the story, quite a bit better. Spyro has gone to effectively another little dimension where he's met a new bunch of friends that needed the help of a big ferocious dragon after a little tyrant called Ripto took over their land. Spyro is not quite the ferocious dragon they were expecting, but he's the one that has to do the job. And he's off to go stop Ripto and his henchmen, and finally go on his much needed holiday. Not to mention, Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage features characters that would go on to become mainstays of the series, such as Hunter, the Professor, and Elora. As well as that, Ripto is just a nasty little bastard, which makes him a good villain. Well, I mean, anything's a bit better than Gnasty Gnorc. Not that he was bad or anything, he was just very bare bones. He was a bad guy, but as far as kids villains go, he wasn't bad. He was no Dr. Robotnik, that's for sure, but Ripto feels like a much more competent rival to Spyro. Another thing I like in this game, in the previous one, you only have Spyro and Gnasty Gnorc meeting face to face for the final battle. In this one throughout, Ripto and Spyro constantly antagonize each other, which it makes it more interesting. It adds more of a refresh rate to the story and motivation this time, which compelled me to play further. Good. You didn't need to please a 24-year-old man, but you bloody well did. As well as that, the realms are way bigger. I swear there's more of them. I might be wrong, but it feels like there's more of them. You've also got 2 different tiers of main collectible to get this time. There are the talismans, which are like little souvenirs you will collect from the different realms you go to, and orbs, which power up the Professor's portals to help Spyro get home. Another great thing is that they no longer put enemies or dangers inside the hub worlds, allowing you to just play around with Spyro and better get to grips with his playstyle. Spyro will also earn new abilities throughout the game this time, such as swimming and climbing, giving levels more replay value as well, to go back and collect different extra orbs using the abilities that you get throughout the game. One bad thing, but deliberately bad in a good way, that this game brought along was Moneybags the Bear. This pompous British money-hungry motherfucker. Oh wait, this greedy bastard's gonna take a lot of the gems that you get throughout the game. And it doesn't really have any major consequence, but yeah, it does give you more reasoning to collect the gems, and yes, it makes you feel like a piece of shit when you give them up. You bastard. But on a whole, Ripto's Rage is where the Spyro series really took shape. It's the kind of sequel that recognizes where simplicity worked about its predecessor, but builds on it with grace. Would I say it's just as accessible as the original? Yeah, it definitely is. I wouldn't say it's much more difficult per se. There's just more to do this time. And everything is just that little bit more compelling. Now let's move on over to the one I grew up with in my childhood. This is one of the first 3D games I ever played, Spyro 3 Year of the Dragon. Now I can immediately vouch that this game was accessible as fuck, just like the previous ones, but once again it builds on top of all of that simplicity that works so well about the previous 2 in new and inventive ways. But while there are big strides forward, there are also a few little steps back. But I don't hold this against the game. So Spyro 3 takes a turn for the slightly more cutesy and cuddly again. I don't hold that against this game because again, it is for children. I really cannot emphasize enough. I think it's a good thing for YouTube to have a reviewer of children's games that does acknowledge that these things are, at the end of the day, for children. And to be willing to meet the game on those terms. Is this effective as a kid's game? Fuck yes, it's effective as a kid's game. It's about as good of a kid's game as you'll get. Why am I swearing in a video about a kid's game? Because the video's not for kids, you jackass. I don't want YouTube to get this confused and think I'm a children's entertainer. I'm not, I swear. The cuddly talking talking dog man is not a children's entertainer. So anyway, to elaborate, Spyro 3 Year of the Dragon does away with some of the mystical Gnorc goblin kind of creatures and goes more for the sort of wildlife woodland critters route, which is fine. It's a little bit of a departure from the previous game where we had different elves and monks and stuff like that. We've now got teddy bears and penguins and stuff, which is, it's fine by me. I like the animals. The only real step back here is the villain this time around. Now, the sorceress is a pretty intimidating villain. Well, for a kid's game. As far as children's game villains go, she's standard fare, nasty witchy lady. But you don't have that sense of nemesis-ship between her and Spyro that you do with Spyro and Ripto, because she's just not as ragey as Ripto. I mean, hence the title, Ripto's Rage. But also, she doesn't really ever meet Spyro face to face until the very end. So we're kind of back in Gnasty Gnorc territory. I think, you know, it's better than Gnasty Gnorc, but it's definitely no Ripto. It's weird to think, as far as the original trilogy goes, there's no reason why I should view Ripto as the nemesis. Each villain only gets one game, but like, Ripto he made an impression on me. But the real MVP of this game is Bianca, the apprentice to the sorceress. This is where they kind of try and do something a little interesting with the story here, is that she works for the sorceress and she's really threatening and a big bully and all that shit, but she actually betrays the sorceress when she finds out her goals, and she helps Spyro defeat her and shacks up with Hunter. Wow, what a nice lady. The core collectible this time, rather than being talismans and orbs, is now little dragon eggs with baby dragons in them, and when you free them, the little baby dragon comes out and gives you a greeting and you find out its name and everything. It's all very, very fluffy. I'm not gonna lie, after the first few animations of these baby dragons, I did end up skipping them. There's quite a bit of repetition here. Anywho, it takes more the level structure of the second game, where you're doing odd jobs for people in these different realms, and you get the egg as a little treat at the end. And it's a combination of eggs and gems that allows you to progress, but also another progression method is to free your animal friends. So there are different levels dotted throughout the different hub worlds, which have animals in cages, which become Spyro's friend. You pay money bags to set them free, and then they've got a little quest of their own to do, which means you've got new playable characters this time, and they all play just fine and have the sensitivities of an average platformer. I think my least favorite of the bunch was probably Bentley, because he's just very, 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 very slow. But then once you've helped these animals out, they help you. They will help you through the different boss fights and help you build the transportation methods to take you to the next hub world and progress the story. And I think it all feels very organic, and it all feels natural, you know? It's really good. Really good stuff. And obviously getting new playable characters really changes things up as well, and I think my favorite one was Sergeant Bird. I like that British bird. It's nice to get some positive British representation in this game, other than that fucking scumbag Moneybags, you nasty Tory bear. But on the bright side, when the game's over, you get to beat him up, which is just great. You get your money back. It's cathartic. This game understands the spectrum of human emotion in a way that a lot of games don't, and I respect the shit out of it for that. Spyro 3, you're a good egg. Get it? Spyro 3 egg, because the eggs are the... Yeah, anyway. Spyro 3 is also home to the best level in Spyro. Heck, one of the best levels, like, ever, period. Fireworks Factory, just a tour de force of a level, man. What a great-ass level. Oh my goodness. Oh my fucking god. Spyro 3 also incorporates vehicle play, but fortunately it's not too intrusive. It doesn't take up too much of the game. There's just additional challenges that require you to hop on different vehicles, such as tanks and a skateboard, which is my personal favorite, and I will always associate Spyro with skateboards. Not only was this one of the first 3D games I ever played, but this game introduced me to skateboards. How fucking cool is that? Outside of Bart Simpson, it introduced me to skateboards. How cool, how awesome. Wow, how freaking radical, bro. So anyway, yeah, like Spyro Year of the Dragon is a good-ass game. Like, I don't know how much more I can really say than that. Yeah, sure, the story, little less brilliant than the previous one. I mean, not that it was a masterpiece or anything. I'd give it the Oscar for best screenplay, but I wouldn't really give it best picture, put it that way. But the point I'm trying to make, the overall point, is that this is a good-ass game and a good-ass series because it understands where it needed to stand on the landscape of video game properties. Spyro the Dragon made a great competitor to Crash Bandicoot because he was everything Crash Bandicoot wasn't. He was simple, He was a breezy good time, he was charming, he was all about that exploration, and they kept things simple, which is the magic of Spyro the Dragon, it's something that future Spyro games wouldn't quite grasp, is that it's the simplicity that made these games work, not button mashing and combos and stuff like that. That's not what I play this Spyro stuff for, guys. If I wanted to play a fucking awesome beat-em-up game, I would play Incredibles Rise of the Underminer. So that was the original Spyro trilogy, and what made it such a great competitor to Crash Bandicoot. But what do you guys think? Comment below and discuss, and as always, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, hit subscribe, hit the like button, and in the description below are the links to different social media feeds, as well as my Patreon and join button for if you're feeling extra supportive and extra generous. But of course, you don't have to do that, because it's a big ask. We can all admit that. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. What matters is you're here. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and have a great day.